Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Just Arsenal YouTube channel. It's been a long time for us, but we are back. We've been very busy, and hopefully we'll be here throughout the season doing a number of little videos for the Just Arsenal website. We've got a loyal fan base on there. Anyway, Rob, today we are going to discuss we thought we'd run through a few of the potential sales in the remainder of the window. What day is it? The 22nd, so 23rd. So there's about 9-10 days, whatever. And we've still got a few players to get rid of, a few players to get off the books, players who haven't made the squad this season. I think we'll start with the one that seems the most advanced, which is Nicolas Pepe. Reportedly close to a move to Nice. It looks like it will just be a straight loan. There may not be any sort of buy option or buy obligation, which is a bit frustrating. I'd have hoped we'd be able to negotiate that, but at least we'll be able to get him off the books for this season, and he won't block the path of a potential incoming like Pedro Neto, and we'll save some of its extortionate wages. I checked on FBref the other day; he's on like 140k a week, and he's not playing. And it's safe to say, I think we all sort of are resigned to the fact that this has been a failure of a transfer. Yeah, talk to me about Pepe to Nice, Rob.
Yeah, I think it's just something that we have to get done. Leave it in the past. I know that sort of unsure about whether there's that option to buy or not. I was hearing 15 million euros, which isn't great, is it, considering how much we paid for him? But I think
but for me, it would just be take it and go.
Yeah, exactly. For the club, it's sort of like, okay, do we take this option for 15 or do we not have one at all and hope that he has a really good season? But there's no guarantee that the Pepe of Lille is going to turn up at Nice. He's been very poor for a number of seasons now. His confidence is very low, and he could have another crap season, even though he's going back to a league where he was, a prolific goal scorer. I think for him, it will be a good move. He was just never really adjusted to the Premier League. I know that he's also been linked with Leicester. That would be an interesting one for us to explore, see if we could do some sort of swap deal involving Yuri Tielemans. But I'm not sure how candid their interest is. And I'm not sure a Premier League club would be wise to be going after Nicolas Pepe this summer.
Yeah, I think we could just see he's not been suited to this division. He excels in transition, and unfortunately, when you play for Arsenal, I think there's probably teams in the league he could play well at, and fit into their system. But when it's a team that dominates the ball and wants to control games, you want someone more technically secure and more able to conquer close combats, which I think links to a piece from Mac Johnson a while ago. I think he wrote a piece about that, about Pepe. So yeah, looks like we can get that done, which I think is probably the biggest outgoing of our summer in terms of the one we really wanted to get done. I think others are not as much of a burden, but we'll discuss them anyway. We'll start with Hector Bellerin. We all love him as a guy. Unfortunately, he's lost his explosiveness and his form has massively dipped since he sustained that pretty horrible injury against Chelsea when he was in really good form, and he never recovered, and we didn't see the sort of overlapping outlook Bellerin that we saw in his early days at Arsenal when he was so exciting. He's been linked with Barcelona. It's a real shame how his career's gone down. He had a good season at Betis, as far as I'm aware. As far as I'm aware, he didn't absolutely light it up, but he was good enough, and they've wanted him back. They apparently have very limited finances and resources, which seems like most of the continent does, which has made negotiating with them a very difficult task. I think what's going to happen with this one, I've heard murmurs of Barcelona being interested, but I can't see that happening. I think what is going to ultimately happen is that he's going to have his contract terminated, which is what he's pushing for, which is what Betis want. I think we're just waiting and waiting and waiting to see if Betis will just make a move, but they won't. And then in the last hour of the transfer window, we might just terminate his contract, kind of like the Aubameyang saga, which you would have seen on All or Nothing. Yeah, thoughts on Bellerin leaving to potentially go to Betis?
Yeah, I suppose it is quite a sad one just because of how explosive a player he used to be and what a defender he was as well. His searing pace, I'll never forget that sort of last-ditch challenge against Swansea all those years ago. He was brilliant. And I have lots of fond memories of Hector Bellerin. And as you say, he's a very likeable person as well. But as a player, there's so many limitations in his game now. And unfortunately, we've seen that perhaps a lot of those weaknesses in his game back in the day were masked by his searing pace, which he no longer possesses, really. As you say, by all accounts, he had a really good season at Betis last term. But his Arsenal career is done, let's face it. Once Mikel Arteta made the decision to let him go last summer, I think it was sort of decided a bit like Pepe. If he goes on loan this summer, it's not like he's going to be reintegrated next season, is it? Like the plan was to sell Bellerin last summer. I think we just couldn't find a buyer, and it seems like it's a similar case this summer. I think given like a lot of people forget back in the day when Bellerin was at the peak of his powers, he did have the opportunity to sort of experience pastures new and move elsewhere when we were in a very bad stage as a football club. And he didn't. He actually signed a 6-year contract, which was, just very good of him to do and showed his loyalty and commitment to the club. So considering he's a proper Arsenal man, I don't think I'd be averse to letting him sort of have his wish satisfied and let him go back to Betis, even though they can't really pay a fee for him. I just think he deserves that for what he's given to the club over the years. Obviously, we shouldn't sort of pull that trigger too early. We should maybe tempt Betis into paying at least a little bit of money, which would obviously be preferable. But yeah, it'll be sad to see Bellerin go because he was such a fan favourite for such a long time.
Absolutely. Finally, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. What a frustrating guy. He could have had a career here if he'd settled on being a fullback. Which, I don't know, that always gets labelled on him that he was so resistant to playing as a fullback or wingback, but he did eventually come in and have that run as a wingback under Arteta in that when we won the FA Cup, and he was excellent. That summer, we should have cashed in. I think we can all look at that in hindsight, but at the time, we were all saying we should be, rejecting these bids from Wolves. We were getting 15. I think we may have got a £20 million bid, which we rejected, which we'd snap your hands off for now. He has been linked with a few clubs, though. I think this just shows how bad a selling club we are. He's been linked with a few clubs. I think Everton, Leicester, and West Ham were the three I saw. For our transfer checker on Twitter. Hopefully, we find some sort of solution for him because he hasn't been on the bench for any of the 3 games. I think we will. I think we'll get this done. I think, again, it'll be a very late move, probably very cheap, fee substantially below what we'd want. But I do think we will get some sort of fee for him. Yeah, talk to me about Maitland-Niles leaving, Rob.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think hopefully we'll be getting a bit of money in for him. But let's face it, we fucked up with Maitland-Niles. We really did. Should have sold him a few years ago when his stock was high. And we're now sort of licking our wounds because of that. And he's got a year left on his deal. I remember last summer he put out that sort of cryptic Instagram story when, well, it wasn't really cryptic at all. Just he said he wanted to leave, and that wasn't ideal. It's been a very sort of troubled marriage between Maitland-Niles and Arsenal over the course of the last couple of years. I think it would have just been best for all parties if he was allowed to leave when he had the opportunity to. to Wolves, of course. But yeah, I think we'll probably have to take a few million and eat a bit of humble pie and learn from our mistakes. It's frustrating because I know that Clive on the Arsenal Cannon podcast was talking about this at the start of the season. You just wish someone could shake Ainsley Maitland-Niles and tell him, focus on being a right back at Arsenal. You could genuinely do it. There is a role for him at Arsenal. I still think that, even though we've got Tomiyasu and White there, I really do think he could still play for Arsenal. But he doesn't want to do that, even though the right back role at Arsenal is basically a midfield role. He's a strange bloke, isn't he? So yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, really. But unfortunately, he's going to leave us for very little this summer.
See, I think there's definitely a role for him. I think he's really smart tactically. He can carry out a very specific tactical instruction. He's great in big games to do those sort of very specific tactical nuances that the manager implements, and he's brilliant one-on-one defender. We know how quick he is. He's a great athlete. I think to play consistently for Arsenal in this Arteta team, he probably would need to be better on the ball and a better passer. We saw it last season when he did get those sort of few minutes in midfield. He just doesn't have the progressive passing to play in an Arteta team in midfield, or I don't think even as a right back. It sort of reminds me of the Joe Willock thing. Because Joe Willock had some clear, very good attributes, but he also had some things which really limited him, which meant he wouldn't really suit our style of play and Mikel Arteta's system. And we should have seen that. We should have had the foresight back when Wolves were interested to see that, and to see that in the future, when we want to sort of progress the squad into more of what Arteta wants. It worked when Arteta adapted and played more pragmatically, but when we wanted for the long-term plan, we should have seen that and gotten rid of him at that time when his stock was high. But we didn't, and he'll go now. Anyway, we'll leave it at that for those three who are the more likely outgoings. Then maybe there'll be one or two surprise ones, who knows. But I think those are the three players we want to get rid of now. We've done an all right job in overhauling a lot of the squad now. And yeah, Rob, any parting words before we finish this Just Arsenal video?
No, nothing to add, really. I just long for the day when we can get a suitable fee for the players that we sell. As you say, I think we've got rid of the players that we needed to get rid of, and hopefully this is sort of the end of that journey of just sort of either paying players off or taking very minimal fees for them. Hopefully we've reached the end of that now. It's literally the last of the deadwood, really, that Arteta just doesn't rate, that seem to be leaving the club this summer. But yeah, decent job by the club. Let's hope we get some bigger fees in the future.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks for watching this Just Arsenal video. Subscribe to the Just Arsenal YouTube channel. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.